Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Manos and Manos, for inviting me again to this super course. I've been here from the beginning, and I'm every time excited to be again. So thanks again. So I'm going to talk about the Verso, the stemless metaphyseal reverse shoulder arthroplasty, and my experience over the last 18 years. My disclosure, I'm the designer of this implant, so everything I say is obviously concerning this implant. We know that reverse shoulder replacement, especially we heard it in the last couple of days, that give very good, consistent results. There are many shoulder replacements in the market, but the majority are with long stem and things are evolving. But there are problems with the stemmed implants. There's glenoid notching, we know that. There's a problem with stress shielding, and not only with the long stems, with the short stems as well. And we see disappearance of the greater tuberosity and the proximal humerus. There are limited rotational movements, and we just heard it in the last session, how to improve it, both external rotation and internal rotation. And we know from this study from the Gilles Valche group that in the long term, the majority of the problems with reverse shoulder are with a humeral stem rather than the glenoid. And of course, these elderly patients, they tend to fall. We live on planet Earth. There's gravity, they fall, they fracture. And if they have a stem, they will fracture the tip of the stem. And this is quite difficult to treat. And of course, we have revisions. And the more implants goes in, the more revisions we'll see. And some of these revisions are very difficult operations and don't have really a good reverse gear. And we see more and more of these revisions with longer and longer stems and less bone stock. And the question is, what's next, what to do? And we need to try to avoid these disasters. So again, that's something that I'm talking about for the last 18 years. We have to adopt the idea of following the patient through his life or the shoulder and plan the patient journey through life and plan for future revisions if will be necessary. You know, definitely the importance of bone preservation. So we already done it once with an anatomic shoulder. It took Steve Copeland, my mentor and friend and teacher. He was a game changer with a resurfacing. So it took us about 20 years to persuade the world that a long stem is not necessary for anatomic shoulder. And we went from the stem through the Copeland resurfacing to the stemless anatomic that now it's used everywhere. And actually, I was pleased to hear Tony Romeo 2 years ago in the Rome course saying that stemless anatomic shoulder replacement is now the gold standard. I hope that the day is not far that the stemless reverse will be the gold standard. So let's see what's the ideal humeral component for reverse shoulder. So it should be bone preserving. It better be easy, quicker insertion and simple procedure. Advantage if it can be performed under regional or local anesthesia. It should have good initial fixation and stability, even in osteoporotic bone, because what we operate mainly are elderly patients, and most of them have osteoporosis. It should have good longevity, no stress shielding and good load transfer to the bone, good rotational movement for activities of daily living, because the rotational movement are crucial for activities of daily living, and easy revisability if revision will be needed. So with that in mind, I came with the idea back in 1997, and it took some years to persuade some companies to go with it. And we designed this prosthesis, the Verso, which is a triple-finned, short metaphyseal / stemless reverse shoulder replacement. Since 2005, we've been implanting it, and now we have more than 18 years experience. The design is a bone preserving with minimal bone resection. It's triple finned stemless metaphyseal that has a cancellous fixation only in the metaphysis. There's a large surface area to volume ratio, and it gives us immediate fixation and immediate stability in the bone, and then later on a bony ingrowth into the hydroxyapatite coating. and there's a very good stress distribution under the prosthesis. It follows the principles of Leonardo da Vinci. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So to define, what we see here is, this is a stemmed implant. This is a short stem with diaphyseal stem. And this is a short metaphyseal. There's no stem in the diaphysis. So you can call it short stem, you can call it whatever, but there's no stem in the diaphysis. There's a few new concepts that we introduced. One of them is the total metaphyseal cancellous fixation, and using a bone impaction technique to enhance the bone stock. And we use the bone from the head, and we impact it, and then we have no problem to impact it even in osteoporotic bone. This prosthesis got a cut. The humeral cut is about 155 degrees, but the liner has 10 degrees, and then together it gets 145 degrees, and you can see here how it clears the space from impingement on the glenoid. The glenoid base plate is lateralized by 3 millimeters, and the angled liner can be adjusted after the implant has been inserted to the best optimal version for each patient. So between 2005 and 2024, we operated about 1,000 consecutive reverse shoulders. We assess these patients religiously. We see them for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and every year. We do the constant score, the agent-adjusted constant score, subjective shoulder value, SSV, satisfaction. We take X-rays in AP and axillary view, and we do video clips, record video clips for every patient in every visit. I've got more than 50 terabytes of videos. We published our first study, or it was the second study, on 2 to 7 years follow-up a few years ago with very good results. And actually now we looked at our more than 10 years follow-up, 10 to 17 years follow-up. We had 207 consecutive patients. 22 of them had stemmed implant for acute fractures, so we excluded them from this follow-up. We 73 patients actually passed away. This is all the patients, and during these 10 years, they passed away, but I can tell you that they were happy with the shoulder when they died, because we follow them every year. And this, 9 patients actually were lost to follow-up, and we end up with 103 patients that were reviewed for more than 10 years follow-up. The diagnoses were cuff arthropathy, fracture sequela, rheumatoid arthritis, failed rotator cuff and massive rotator cuff tears, and osteoarthritis with deficient cuff. The follow-up, the mean follow-up was 11.6 years, and the mean age at surgery was 74.8, and the majority obviously were females, 76, and 27 males. So the results you can see here, the constant score improved to 66.9, and the age and sex adjusted score to 103.6%. This SSV was 88.6, and the range of movement, the mean range of movement was 145 forward elevation, and good rotational movement, as you can see here. 95.2% felt much better or better after the operation, with 82% much better. Radiographic analysis showed no lucencies, no stress shielding, no humeral subsidence, and no loosening, no lysis of the tuberosities. We had about 27% of glenoid notching grade 1 or 2. This is out of the 103, of course, and only 6 cases, 5.8% of grade 3 notching. There's a controversy about range of movement, and we heard it yesterday in one of the sessions that someone mentioned that maybe if you have to do bilateral reverses, what to do, because if the patient cannot get to the back side. And indeed, some authors, I think it was Christian Gerber once said, if you need to do bilateral, do one side anatomic to have good rotations, and one side reverse to be able to raise the arm up. So we don't see this problem with a verso, and this, we had a paper that we published some years ago about bilateral reverse shoulder replacement with a verso, and you can see in all these patients, their rotational movements are really good, and part of the secret is the fact that they have impingement-free movement because of the shape of the design of the implant. So if we compare the two studies, the 2 to 7 years and 10 to 17 years, we didn't see any deterioration of the results with time. You can see there was much improvement in the age and sex-adjusted constant score, and that's just because they kept the same movement, but they are now much older, so the factor is larger. We didn't see any stress shielding or resorption of the proximal bone, and if we look at the notching, you can see compared to other series with the same length of follow-up, actually very low rate of glenoid notching. However, you must have something. There's limitations to stemless implant, and you must have a stemmed implant in cases of acute fracture, non-union, severe bone loss, or revision with someone else been there with a very long stem and not a lot of bone left for you to revise. And for that, you need a stem as a scaffold. And there's a stemmed implant as well. And we use it for fractures. This is made for fractures for cementless fixation. And you can see, actually, this is now I would say the line to use the first line to use in elderly patients with comminuted fractures. Now, young patients. We talked about young patients. This young lady, at the age of 22, she was operated by Steve Copeland, and I think she was the youngest patient he did with a total resurfacing due to juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. This is 23 years later. She's 45 years old here, and she lost the rotator cuff, as you can see, and as happens with rheumatoids. I revised her to a verso. This is 6 years after the revision. She's only 51 years old here, and here, this is 12 years after the revision. She is only 57 years old, and she's got the best function she ever had, and if anything goes wrong, I don't know if this will last for the rest of her life, I can still do something because I've got all the bone there. This is I think the youngest patient was operated with reverse shoulder, as far as I know. It was operated by my colleague Martin Arbogast in Germany. He works in a rheumatologic center. He gets all the disasters from Germany. And this young lady, she's 15 years old with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, very severely painful and limited. So this is 6 months after a verso. She's back to do what young teenagers do, all the sports and everything. This is 2 years down the line, and this is 5 years down the line, and you can see she is delighted. She's back to normal life. Again, I don't know if this will last for the rest of her life, but she's got all the bone stock there, and if needed, we can do something. Again, weight-bearing patients that are on wheelchairs or crutches. Again, this lady with hemiplegia, the only arm that's functional, she just developed cuff arthropathy, and this is 2.5 months after the operation. She looks even younger, but I don't know, I don't think I did it, but yeah. But she's very happy. You can see she's back to life. Again, a few cases of this is fracture sequela. This poor lady, age 36, had this fracture dislocation. Someone decided to reduce it in A&E, and of course, what he did, he fractured it completely. She was taken to theater. In theater, the surgeon tried to reduce that. At that time, he reduced it. He actually injured the brachial artery, the brachial plexus. He called the vascular surgeon to do a graft, and then I believe he just put this plate the way he could just to get home as fast as possible. Obviously, this is not reduced. This developed AVN. He revised her to a stemmed hemi, and that's how she was referred to me, and she was desperate. And now I was concerned to do it, but she said if I'm not going to do it, she's going to jump from the highest building in Reading. So After a long discussion with her, I revised her from a stemmed hemi to a stemless implant. This is 10 months after the operation. And this lady, 13 years after this operation, again, you can see good function and good x-rays. And she lives in the north of Scotland, and she comes every year to see me. She doesn't care. She comes to see me. Again, fractures, late traumatic periprosthetic fractures. Again, this can be treated conservatively. You see these two ladies, actually, they've got good function, maybe not as good as it was before the fracture, but you can treat it conservatively and it heals because it's metaphyseal. And we had 7 fractures in this series. 6 of them we treated conservatively, only 1 we had to operate was completely displaced. Again, this is another gentleman. He's not from this series because he's only 7 years after the operation. This is how it was. For 7 years, I was delighted. He fell in February. He went to see someone else that wanted to revise him. I said, no, don't need to revise. We can treat you conservatively. And you could see him. This is in last December. You can see that the bone actually filled around the implant, although it's not optimal, but he's got good function and he's happy. Patients are returning to all sports, all activities. I don't actually limit them. And even crazy stuff like ice hockey or, rowing, and you can see they do different things. And for instance, this gentleman, as you can see, with fracture sequela, someone did a hemi on him, and then he was referred to me, and I revised him to a verso. You can see that this is 11 years after the operation, a good function, and that's what this guy is doing. And, it's a bit crazy. I don't recommend it to all my patients. But that's what he did. And when I was, my fellow ran to me to say, he's doing skydiving. He said, what are you doing? He said, Prof, this is my life. I will do it whether you allow me or not. And by the way, you remember how he was before? He said, by the way, you improved my technique. I said, how come? He said, before, in order to fly, we have to do this. Before, I couldn't open my arm, so I used to go down in spiral. I can fly now. So I don't recommend it, but the sky's the limit. Now, I'm very happy to see that after 17, 18 years, the concept is being slowly accepted, and a lot of implants are going shorter. Again, they mentioned the verso in different papers. And as someone said earlier, that I think it was David Dines, that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. However, I think that what we have to bear in mind that not all the implants are the same, and the design is crucial. As they say, either God or the devil is in the details, and you have to look for the design. And especially there are implants that every couple of years change the design. And I don't know, if they change the design, why they change the design, and if they're the same, there's no longevity. What's the results with the new ones? Again, just as a food for thought. So to conclude, the verso stemless metaphyseal reverse shoulder shows excellent long-term with 18 years of clinical and radiological results. It's a bone-preserving, easy and quicker insertion. It can be performed under regional anesthesia only. A good initial fixation and stability, good longevity as I showed here, no stress shielding and good load transfer, good rotational movement for activities of daily living, and if needed, it can be easy revisability. So it ticks all the boxes of the ideal humeral component. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much for your excellent talk and show us your experience and how this is doing. I don't think we have any questions for this. No, we move to the next session. Manos? Okay. So, thank you very much. We move to the last session of this very good meeting.